Welcome to the last day of E3, officially for us. We're leaving today.
Yeah, we wake up, recording, getting in a lift, heading to the airport.
Yeah. So we're going to recap Thursday events. Obviously, it's Friday that we're recording this, but we're going to go over our last day on the show floor, and we're also going to give out our Best of E3 2019 awards at the end.
Yep.
So thank you guys so much for listening, supporting us, helping us get here, t-shirts, if you did the PayPal donations, Amazon links, Twitch subscriptions, all of it. You guys were a huge part of why we were able to do what we do. And it was a huge help to stay at a nice place like this that has good enough internet for us to be able to do this.
And I didn't have to sleep with you.
Yeah.
Which is great,
A little bit of a walk to where we had to go, but not terrible. So
It sounds like a bad walk. Most of the people that I talk to, I'm like, yeah, we walk like 1.5 miles here every day, and they're just like, what? And it's like, oh no, but me and Dave know how to walk. We're really good at it.
Google walks slow.
Yeah. Because it was what Google would say, like, oh, it's going to be like 35-minute walk.
Yeah,
and
we'd give it them 20. Yeah. So it was nice. We went by a couple things, found a couple restaurants, and tried some different food and things like that. So, all right, let's start the day off with you, with Outer Worlds.
Yeah, I went to see Outer Worlds, which is going to be Obsidian's last game on PlayStation, because they were acquired by Microsoft. This is Obsidian doing what they do best. This is a role-playing game shooter. These are the developers from Fallout New Vegas and the original creators of Fallout, if I'm not mistaken. It is a space shooter. It has like some of the humor a little bit more mature than Borderlands, but in that same range of like wacky kind of characters and like storyline. But at its core, it's a RPG that's based on building up your character and making choices and decisions like you would see in a Fallout with dialogue trees and all that. And Obsidian wanted to emphasize that decisions are important. They took us on a mission where we had to infiltrate a factory that grew tumor meat to sell to people, and apparently that place is very evil, as you can expect from a place that grows tumors for people to consume.
So you did say tumor meat.
Yes, tumor meat, yeah. And the person that gave you the mission, they gave multiple options of how to take care of this, and it's up to you to figure out how you want to take care of it, and then you can possibly double cross that person later on if you wanted to. But it was a good compact half-hour demo that showed the different dialogue trees, showed some of the world, and the vibe to me kind of feels like a little bit all over the place, but in a good way. I get a little bit of that Borderlands vibe just from the aesthetics. Borderlands kind of has sometimes a Western look.
Yeah.
But it still has this steampunk, sci-fi type thing. It has some of those elements, but a little bit more serious, but not funny. And I get all that. I get a little bit of Firefly vibe from it. But they showed off the combat, which looks better than what we've seen in the Fallout games, because Fallout's first-person combat has always been super stiff. It's almost like a chore to...
Part of why I don't play the games.
Yeah, because if there's just no movement on a gun. It's just always pretty stiff and just doesn't feel great. I didn't get to control it, but just seeing the movements and some of the combat, what the guy playing was switching between weapons, it just looked a little bit more fluid. Doesn't look perfect, like we would see in a game that is first-person shooter first. But it looked significantly smoother. It was funny though, because they're Obsidian. They come from a history of Fallout, and you see a lot of these elements in this game. You see that DNA. They don't have a VAT system, but your character, I guess, got out of cryo and has a little bit of brain damage, and that allows him to see things a little bit slower. Which is a weird justification for it, but it's still that's their excuse to have a VATS type system. VATS just slows down time. You can pick different parts. This one, you're not picking individual parts, though there seems to be limb damage that you can do. But it slows down time enough so you don't have to deal with the shooting combat as much. They also have terminals, just like Fallout would have terminals, and it's for hacking. So if you have hacking skills, you can maybe do missions by hacking the system and the AI to turn against people, and different mechanics like that. So it's a very familiar game, but it doesn't seem like it might be hindered by the Bethesda jankiness.
Okay.
Or at least we hope so. We might find out that this genre is janky in general, but it's a tight demo, so we won't know until they, release it.
Did they date that yet?
Yes, that's coming out in October.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, so it'll be the last PlayStation game from Obsidian. I talked to one of the developers for like half a second, because they had in the morning they were like pretty packed with half-hour appointments, because like I went back later that day and they were done by like 3. So I think they just packed their Thursday. But I just told him like, hey man, like this is gonna be the last Obsidian PlayStation game. He's like, yeah, most likely. I'm just like, yeah.
Most likely you're owned by Microsoft.
yeah.
So unless Microsoft completely just becomes a software company.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe it'll end up on. I mean, Obsidian games will probably end up on PC the way Microsoft works now. So
I think it is going to PC.
No, I'm saying their next game after this. Yeah. But yeah, that was Outer Worlds.
Yeah. I went downstairs in the meeting concourse and I saw No Straight Roads, which is like a third-person adventure platform game, but with a music rhythm twist to it. So right off the bat, like I was playing the tutorial mission, and there are things that like you play as like 2 characters, like one's like a drummer and one's a guitarist, and you can like the tutorial had you do a lot of like there's like platforming, there's jumping, there's ways to like break blocks with your with your melee ability and things like that, and then you get ammo and you can shoot ammo at different things, and then there's like these large speakers that you play your music on really loud, and it puts out this circle around you and it loads the speaker up and it shoots like a rocket at it. I was very confused a little for the most part about how the rhythm of the music aspect works with this, but there is a story, there is a campaign. It's coming out like early 2020. The demo was very confusing to me. I was asking the guy some questions, but again, there was a little bit of a language barrier there for him understanding what I was asking him. It was fun what I played, and I did the tutorial, and then they had me do like a boss fight, and the boss fight was in 3 tiers each. It was more like you were kind of like in a circular arena, and these things were constantly circling around, and there was parts of the beat that you could hear really well, but I feel like he turned the music on before the game started.
Oh, I mean, I saw that in the indie booth with 1 or 2 games. Yeah. It's because they don't have like a full setup, so some of them are just running a cable to like an external speaker, right, which is causing a little bit of a delay with some games. So I've seen that with like 1 or 2 other games.
And I think in a music rhythm game, any kind of delay is bad.
Yeah. that must be hard to demo though, because like no pun intended, Andy's not here, but you really need to get into a rhythm for that stuff, and just being like, here's a controller, you got 5 minutes, like sometimes it takes a little bit to
and then open air cubicles, there's other noise going around. You're trying to like, so a lot of stuff was like on the beats, and like and it was challenging. The game looked really cool, and the visuals, it kind of gave like a Res Infinite kind of feel to it, with like, instead of like controlling like a floating ship or an orb or whatever, like you're actually controlling a character or 2 characters on the ground. And it will have co-op as well.
Nice.
So you went and saw Earth Knight?
Yeah, Earth Knight is a game that I actually feel like I saw at my first E3 or my first or second E3. So I've known the developer a little bit. I would just stop by. He was at the PlayStation with I think 2 years in a row, so like probably 2015, 2016, and he's been at every PSX.
Okay.
And I interviewed him. We'll have the interview up next week. But most of my appointment was spent just talking to him about the development cycle. Because when I saw him at last PSX, he said he was really close. He finally went
a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah. So like 2 years ago, he went full time and thought, this is going to be it. I'm gonna knock it out of the park. So when I saw him at PSX like a year and a half ago, he was like, I'm really close. We should get this. But then fatherhood hit him. So he had a kid, and he said like, that's been great. That's been fantastic. But it did delay him a little bit. But the good news is he's in CERT right now with Sony.
Okay.
So as long as everything goes well with CERT, he should be coming out within the next few months, because then, he has to...
Once it gets approved, they put him in a pool, so he doesn't know the exact date yet.
Yeah, he doesn't know the exact date, but then as soon as he gets a date, then that's when he can start, figuring out a trailer and doing all that stuff.
I would probably believe if he's in certification, it'll probably be this 2019.
No, he said it should be within the next couple months. It just doesn't know if he's going to get that summer window or if he's going to end up in the fall.
Right.
Because a lot of the indie developers I talk to, right around now, if they're in CERT, they're hoping Sony has a summer program and they can get into that summer program, or they hope that they almost miss that summer program so they can get into the
holiday push.
Push. But I saw the game a little bit. It's kind of when it first started, all those years ago, it got kind of put into a bubble of an endless runner. But it has so many different things. You play a character who's collecting items, and you're running on the back of a dragon. It's this cool art style. It's hand drawn or hand illustrated art, which is very beautiful. It's got really great chiptune and full band music. But it's significantly deeper. In an interview, I had him explain a little bit better, just because he can explain it better than I can. Mm-hmm. I've seen it over the last couple years, and it's been great to see it progress. Because every time I've seen it, he's added a new layer or added more depth to the game. So seeing that, and then finally seeing that it is close to being finished, and you can see when as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, there's a lot more layers of just item, because you can upgrade. There's replayability. There's potential for speed running for it, and then he said it's filled with secrets. Nice. That he's excited to see. So definitely check out Earth Knight. It's better to look at it than me to explain it with words. But yeah, interview will be up next week.
Mm-hmm. All right, I went to see Calypso Media, and I got to see Tropico VI, which is out on PC already, and it's actually, they're getting a lot of feedback and everything like that on it, and they are bringing it to consoles, and it hopefully will come to consoles in 2019. They're just doing some fine-tuning. There is a lot of stuff that I saw this week that I'm like, how the hell are they going to put that on a controller?
They do, though. They end up doing it.
Yeah, so I think that, and not having not played a lot of Tropico games. I know we had one that was free on Plus that I think I have.
Yeah, a 6 or 5 or 6.
Yeah, so the city builder, sandbox building game and stuff like that. That's all there, in the fine-tuned, detailed, and being El Presidente, and like we talked about a couple years ago, last year, going through those things. That's all cool. The buildings and how they look and how detailed you can get, and budgets and simulations and all that stuff you can do is cool. They have 52 campaign missions / challenges now. That if you complete those, you get a lot of resources and revenue, but they're pre-built scenarios for you already. And they as you go through the years and the genres, some of the scenarios might require you to do a slow progression or even speed time, set a couple things up, speed time up, so you move into a more modern era to complete the challenge. And what was really interesting about it is I think he said there was 50 plus of them, and once you complete all those, I think that, and some of them would take about, he said anywhere from maybe 2 to 3 hours per challenge. That you would have the ability and a really, really good grasp on exactly how the sandbox would work to go into the free build functions and and make your own city world.
Yeah.
So that stuff was really interesting and cool to me, how you could see people's happiness level and them going to work and in transportation and building workplaces, but then also having to have residential places, and so it's just crazy how deep it gets. But you got to mess with the controls and the UI a little bit, where it's the weapon wheel style that comes up, but you have one an inner ring that you pick something and then you can select something on the outer ring and then you can build it. So I think in terms of using the triggers and stuff like that to bring up those inventory menus and using the thumbsticks for the interface to compensate for just using a mouse and dragging and clicking and right clicking, it's really good. So if you're, I don't think you'd be disappointed if you're into the Tropico series at all. It looks very cool.
Nice.
And then speaking of games that you've probably seen since you were 12.
Yeah, this is Manifold Garden, which is a multi-time PS Nation E3 Best of Show winner. I believe Emra gave one to it and Glenn gave one to it. This is a Chicago developer, so I've seen him around Chicago every once in a while when there's a video game event in Chicago. But this is another game where it's been worked on for like 6.5 years. The easiest way to describe it, I can describe this one a little better than Earth Knight, is it's a puzzle game in Escher style art, which he explained, like the simplest way to explain it, because not everyone knows what like that style art is. Remember in Inception? Did you see Inception?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I know what it is.
But you've seen like some of the trailers where like the city folds on itself and stuff like that. It's basically a puzzle game with that element, but it has like a sketch or like a blueprint design. So it's like really trippy looking, and it like catches your eye. This is a game that I looked at it for a little bit. I've played it over the years just because he's been at multiple E3s. There was at one point where in 2015, he basically spent the summer taking it to 30 different trade shows. Like he was like, he caught the eye of PlayStation back when PlayStation cared about indies, and they basically just like him and like whoever's publishing the game had him going to E3, Tokyo Game Show, and various different conventions.
All things that he was doing and not working on the game.
And that's what he said was a problem at a certain point, because he realized that he spent like several months and he was by himself for a while with maybe like one or two people, that he just wasn't working on the game, and that kind of slowed it down. But now he's got a full team of like a dozen people. And he said he recently hired a producer, and it's great that he doesn't have to manage those people anymore, which means he can put his head down and focus on the game. I recorded an interview with him as well. It's almost like a health check of just like, hey, how's it going? And that is another game that he doesn't want to specifically say 2019, but he feels good that might be a possibility after working on a game for about 6.5 years. Because this is another game that I may have saw at my first E3 or my second E3, and it's been at various shows, but it kind of stopped showing up at shows the last couple years, and it's just because he's just been focusing on it. And it's just good just because in the Chicago community, it's one of those games that I feel like a lot of the up-and-coming Chicago developers, they look at that game. Even though it hasn't been released, they look at Manifold Garden of just like, look what he's able to do, and he's from Chicago.
Right.
So it's hopefully that does come out this year, but he can't make any promise on it. Definitely look up videos on Manifold Garden, because one of those games. It's
a cool-looking game, yeah.
It's a cool-looking game, and we'll have an interview with Willie next week.
Awesome. And then I bumped into you at IndieCade on my way there. I talked to him for a little bit with you, and then I went and saw a game called Keen. Not Commander Keen, just Keen.
I wonder if they were annoyed when they saw that announcement that Commander Keen is back, and they're like, damn it.
This one is, I don't even remember if you told me exactly what kind of like genre you classify it as, but it's like a grid-based puzzle, a top-down puzzle moving game. You are controlling a girl, and she's being taught by her grandmother how to wield the family heirloom blade. And she's there's a little bit of banter back and forth between the granddaughter and the daughter and the granny about I've been wielding blades for years. I know what I'm doing, and then she's like, not this kind. And the gist of this game is, and it was actually really fun. When I first saw it, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. So there's really no attacking. There's just constant like moving left or right or up or down, and the only thing that stops you is an obstacle, whether it's an enemy or a wall or even like a plant on the ground. But like, so you have to kind of figure out, like, you might have to go left or you go down and then go left and then go up and then come back to the right and then go back down and go to the right and then go up in the middle to get out of the thing and out of the level or out of that particular puzzle. And then within that you have like enemies, like, and if you're moving fast enough, like if you're going across like 4 or 5 blocks at a time, you can just like slash dash through all the enemies. Or if one of them's too close and you stop next to it, your character will do like a ground pound with the blade, and it'll damage things around the area. You obviously have a health bar, so if you have to be kind of really strategic about when you hit and how you hit, and it might be better to, the most direct route might not be the correct route, because you might run into an enemy problem where it's better to go down and then up and then circle around and go through. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that was fun. It has some small little hidden collectibles and things like that, but it was only like a 15-minute appointment. and they were unsure. I think they're trying to hit 2019 as well, but I think a lot of them are in the same boat as they're waiting for like certifications and things like that. So
yeah, because the cert process seems like it takes a while, and then if you get any sort of bug from cert, you have to just go back to working. So yeah, cert sounds like it's hell.
Yeah.
Like you're just nervous checking your emails every couple of days.
And then I had one of my first appointments that I would ever, like, actually the multiple years that I've been at E3, I didn't run into this situation, but I had one of those first appointments where I didn't really I had an appointment with somebody, but it was like, hey, where do you want to meet? And I'm like, what?
Oh, I love those. You spend the first 5 minutes of your appointment to say, I'm here, and they're like, wait, where? And
yeah.
like, yep.
So this was for Freedom Finger. He had like an Xbox controller plugged into his MacBook, and it flipped it up and played it, and it's a shoot 'em up, a shmup that you play as a middle finger that you can shoot. So like it's a side scroll, side scrolling shoot 'em up, and it was pretty fun. The interesting part it has is that as you're the finger, as middle finger, you're shooting, and then you also have the ability to do a punch. Like you can get up close to an enemy and like your fist will close up and you'll punch them. And then the thing that I guess makes it a little bit more different than other ones in other games, like when in other shoot 'em ups, when you'd shoot things, they'd put out an orb sometimes, and you pick the orb up, and that was a quick power up, and you had the ability of, like a fully automatic weapon or a stronger weapon or like a blast ray. This one, you would physically with your fist grab the ship, and then you would control that, and you'd be shooting that until you got hit.
It's like Teen Inks, the game.
So, I mean, it had a lot of quick movement and a lot of stuff going on the screen, obstacles you had to dodge while shooting at things and things shooting at you, and it's got a score chase to it. It's fully, I didn't see any of the cutscenes or anything like that. It's fully voice acted. Apparently, I think Nolan North is in this game.
Okay.
So, but I didn't really see any aspect of it. The soundtrack was really, really good. He listed off a couple song names, but he's got like 25 licensed tracks on it. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like he has money for a spot.
Yeah.
Maybe we at least know where that money went.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. Like it was just kind of one of those ones that showed up in my email, and I looked at it, and it looked kind of cool. And then I thought maybe it'd be in the IndieCade booth, and we had to go back and forth, and we sat at the table where he had his build.
Well, at least there was plenty of places to sit at E3 this year.
Yeah.
On the outskirts, there were so many like.
Well, this was like in the lobby area.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I thought if he was on the floor because there was like. E3 this year, there was like plenty of stuff in the center of each hall, but around the edges, there was just like stages where no one was watching live streams.
Yeah.
Which is always odd. Like.
Yeah. All right, and then you and I went to THQ together, but then we split at THQ.
Yep.
You got to see
Destroy All Humans,
okay.
the remaster. It's almost a remake to a certain extent. It is definitely the original Destroy All Humans, but they have added a ton of quality of life changes. The visuals look significantly better. It doesn't look like just an up-res job. They're redoing textures and stuff like that. They even showed us some parts of the game where they're still building the levels out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember playing Destroy All Humans as a kid on the PS2, enjoying it, but there were issues, and they have tweaked some of the combat. Your telekinesis power is a little bit easier to use. They removed some of the the cooldowns on some of the stuff, and they actually seem like they care about it. It's one thing that I always worry. Especially like THQ Nordic, it just seems like they just pump out these remasters, and some of them are bad, some of them are good. Darksiders 1 seemed like those were good.
Did THQ do Darksiders 1?
They did the remaster.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
THQ Nordic.
Yeah.
And then also, and THQ I think did do the original ones, and that's how they got the IP to do. But also, there's the what's the one where you can destroy the terraforming, the gorilla or something. Red Faction Gorilla. Those remasters have been it feels thrown together, but this one seems like they're taking their time to rebuild this game with new cutscenes, original voice acting, but doing a bunch of quality of life improvements. I asked them how they went about doing this because it's an old game, and if you're going to make tweaks and talk to the community, who do you talk to, and they actually were given original documentations and stuff, work that was done on the game originally. They were given just documents and stuff like that that showed some of the ideas the original developers wanted to do the game, but might have been limited by technology-wise at the time for PS2. So they were working off original dev docs, and then they obviously played the game and were like, okay, this needs to be tweaked, this needs to be tweaked because it's like 2019. And then they also read old reviews and forum posts just to see, like they basically looked at all the cons that were in old press reviews and tried or attempted to fix any of those issues that may have docked the game points back like 10, 12 years ago when the game came out. So they've been going through that process, and it seems like they're taking their time with it. I don't think there's a release window on it, or there might be, but they're clearly not done. They had a bunch of different like levels, and I got to play the game a little bit. Got to do just like some challenges. They tweaked some of the challenges, and they're adding new challenges as well. The challenges are basically just like randomly around the map, and you just go into it. But they changed up the variety because originally the game only had a couple challenge modes, and now they've expanded that. I did challenge mode where it's just like kill a bunch of farmers with your powers in like a little arena. That worked pretty well. It was a little weird. The controls still feel a little bit old. You have telekinesis power, but to grab someone with telekinesis is also the same button to like throw them. So you're just trying to like figure out like how long of a press you need to do. Like if you press it real fast, it'll throw them. But then if you hold it just half a second too long, it throws them and then just brings them back to you. Like you don't actually let go of it. So there's still stuff there that they probably need to work on. And then it showed like there's parts of the game where you're in your flying saucer and just destroying every building and stuff like that. And they added the ability to rise and lower your ship, which apparently wasn't in the original. I didn't even remember that, but that's just like weird limitations back then.
Right.
So they're doing those quality of life improvements and making an overall better game. They seem like they care, which is nice. Remasters can be tricky. You know, it's like how much do you stay with the original game, and how much do you just like change it without hurting the game?
Right.
But you got to see something that you were very happy to see. But you were reluctant to go to.
Yeah. We were talking about it on the way to the show yesterday. So it was Darksiders Genesis, and I knew that like 2 weeks ago you had talked to me about like there's leaks about a new Darksiders game.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, interesting. I go, it's really too soon for 4.
Yeah.
Like to where the point where I was like kind of terrified if it'd be 4 because of how soon it would be. I just didn't want it to feel rushed or anything like that.
Yeah, you almost didn't believe me when it's like, well, what are we saying? It's like, it's going to be Darksiders. And you're just like, no, it can't be. It's like, no, it's Darksiders.
So, and then they released a trailer last week that showed a top-down Darksiders, like a top-down 3/4 view sort of thing. And everybody immediately thought Darksiders like Diablo-like. Mm-hmm. And,
and then you were like, loot?
Yeah, so like I really like loot. I've always had a hard time getting into Diablo because of just the learning curve that's in there.
And there's a lore built in that you would possibly have to get acquainted with,
right,
since you're like 3 deep now.
Yeah. And then, but this is completely not Darksiders Diablo. It is not a loot-based game. It is a Darksiders game at its heart and at its core. It takes place before the events of Darksiders 1. And it is obviously called Darksiders Genesis, and it is you play as War and Straith. Straith is the fourth horseman, the one that has not gotten his own game yet. He is a little bit more of the focus of this game, but you are playing with War, and as a single player functionality, you can switch on demand between Straith and War. Straith is more of a twin stick shooter kind of character, and War is the close combat melee character. Each one of them, War doesn't really have any kind of ranged attack, but Straith does have some ranged attacks and things like that. So as you're playing, you can switch between the two of them on demand, and they showed us like it was a hands-off demo, but the guy was like literally playing the game right in front of us. And he was showing like ways where you're like in a situation where you're doing a bunch of comboing, you're stunning a bunch of enemies, and you immediately switch to War, and then do like a special ability that War has, and just you're shooting them as Straith, and you switch to War and damage them out, and like combo it all together. There's still like the gem system for picking up health and getting, charging your wrath and all that stuff. And the platforming is still there, and it looks good. It looks great. It looks like it works. From jumping, there's still little prompts on the screen that tell you things. There's still exploration. There's still leveling up. There's still hunting for chests and getting monster cores and things like that. I did an interview with them, and they went a little bit more in depth. These are the original people, the original Darksiders creator.
Yeah. To say how original they are, with like how you can tell physically that they're.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's got Darksiders tattoos like all over him.
Yeah.
Like, this is his baby. This is his thing. And they straight out said, like, there was like 3 or 4 of us in this meeting, and people were asking him why like the 3/4 view and stuff like that, and he goes, because it's easier to make.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. Like, we obviously had large gaps between Darksiders because of THQ problems, but would you, obviously you haven't played the full game, but would you be okay with if this meant Darksiders games faster, if this works out, if this is fun?
I still think this in terms of like if it's going to be Darksiders Genesis or Darksiders Genesis 2 or Darksiders whatever, I think that this style works. If they're going to tell straight the story, it needs to be Darksiders 4, and it needs to be similar or the same as the first 3 games.
But like these in between Darksiders games, you can see that being like workable or feasible?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like this one looks like, obviously having not played it at all, I had an opportunity. They gave me a card to go down to the show floor and play it, but I just wasn't able to get down there. But I didn't really need to get down there. Like what I saw and like how I saw the guy playing it, doing the boss battles and mini boss battles and everything like that, it was fine. Like the only thing is that even they said it like kind of during my interview and stuff like that, like they're running out of time in the story to keep telling things. Like they need to tell, like essentially, like they need to tell straight story. And they were kind of being politically correct when I was talking to them about this, but at the same time, it's just the real fact of the matter is that it's expensive to make. To make Darksiders 4 like they would want to, it's very expensive, and that's not his decision. That's THQ Nordic's decision. Yeah. Because they were involved a little bit with the third one, but that was Gunfire Games. So they've been working on this one. I loved it, like in terms of a co-op game, and then the ability there is a small bit of farmability in this game to where, like, let's say they said there's at least 17 levels in the game now, so there's like there could be more. They may or may not cut 1 or 2. They're not really sure. It's supposed to come out this year, but let's say like I'm on level 7 or 8 and you're just starting. I would go back with you, but my character would be just as leveled up as he is now. They won't get me down to your level. So that now there's areas there's not as much Metroidvania in the game as in the other Darksiders games, but there are areas that will be easier for me to get to because of the abilities and things like that I have, my character has. And then you would still have access to those as long as you were with me. And then as you're fighting mini-bosses and bosses, they can drop monster cores, and those cores are things you use to upgrade your skill tree. So there is a benefit to going back and helping your friends and leveling them up. There's a benefit to, like, hey, let's just... we really need this specific core. Let's just do this level 4 or 5 times in a row together to kind of farm the core. So there's definitely some of that stuff there to make it, more fun or easier as you progress. But if they could have pulled off a Darksiders style loot game, I would have been on board. But I'm also very happy with what I saw.
Okay, nice. That's good.
And then we both went to Cyberpunk.
Yes, we saw Cyberpunk. Got a nice 40-minute demo, around 45 minutes. They put us through a little bit of the choice system.
Character creation was kind of first a little bit.
Character creation was first. It's work in progress character creation, but they showed, what you would expect from an RPG character creator, eye color, skin tone, muscle tone, face stuff, and that's all work in progress. So like, please don't judge our menus for this, but it looks like it's pretty good character customization, which I don't think they've really ever done. This because Witcher just always had a defined character. Right. So they're working on character customization. Your V, I believe is the main character's name. Could be male or female, and then you customize based on that. They showed us a little bit. They have like a class system, but you're not stuck in one class system. It's just how you build your character out defines your class system. So they showed us 2 different systems. They showed us V as the guy was stealth oriented, stealth hacker, and then the female version was just the brute, basically the ass kicker of the two. We mostly saw being played. It wasn't hands on. We mostly saw the guy doing stealth because they showed combat last year, and they wanted to at least emphasize like you don't always have to fight. Though this guy totally fought because they have the badass like laser whip thing, which you at the end of it was like, that thing was pretty cool. It's
just like Wonder Woman's whip, but it can cut your leg off.
Yeah, and then she just like cut.
And it can hack.
Yeah, it can hack. You can like throw it at someone's head, and then it will hack or jack into people. Which every time they're just like, you just jack in. I'm just like, but.
Polish developer.
Yes. You use that whip, and he used it a little bit. He pretty much fought a little bit. It looks like Keanu Reeves is like in your head all the time, which is like awesome. That Keanu Reeves is in there.
I made some reference like, oh look, another voice in your head. That's what you need.
Yeah. So you end up working with a leader of a group, and he wants you to infiltrate and like hack a van that was what they called like a Google Maps van on steroids because it was doing something to the city. So you had to infiltrate a building to hack this like data van, and then we just got to see a bunch of different like ways you can interact with the system or interact with the game, and then we got to switch to the other version of the character. You can't do that in the actual game, but they just wanted to show like this happens when you stealth it, and this happens when something goes wrong, and they kept switching back and forth, but we got to see some of the power combat when they switched over, which was brutal, and there's a ton of like violence in this. But they did also say you can finish the whole game without killing anyone, which was interesting to see. It seems like that would be a hard task to not kill anybody. But what did you think of the combat?
It looked really interesting. Like that whip and everything like that was really cool. In terms of like, there's a couple scenarios where they showed him like literally, like no joke, like wrapping this thing around somebody's leg and yanking on it, and then like the leg went 13 feet that way and the body went 13 feet the other way. And then they took their time. They knew like they obviously it's a controlled demo, and CD Projekt Red knows what they have. And they like the guy would take the time to kind of like slowly watch the like walk over there, like he knew exactly what he was doing when
they did that a couple times. Where it's just like, oh yeah,
I'm gonna let you just watch this, like and then the HUD constantly moving around and someone always talking to you in terms of and what they're showing and things like that. I've never played Witcher, and the Cyberpunk universe style stuff doesn't do anything for me. Like it looks cool, like we were in like the booth and everything like that, and all that stuff looks amazing, looks cool. The Blade Runner stuff, like the Blade Runner world and stuff like that, does nothing for me. So like I understand that, but at the same time I know from a like this is a very like highly trending, like there was awards all over the place for this show.
Their picture at the end of the day, they ran out of wall space. The only reason I didn't give them one is I gave them one last year, and I wanted to switch it up.
So like I totally like respect what they're doing. I just don't like. It may be something that I would play eventually, like after I see some actual like somebody like you playing the game or something like that. But it looks really good. Like it looks really cool, and the style and the gameplay and everything like that looks like something that I would like. But it has like a deeper layer to it that I'm just like, I don't know if I want to like invest that much time in.
When they showed, it's funny. I had the same thought for you. When they showed like the skill tree, it's like I don't know if Dave is going to be into like skill treeing. Like you like loot and you like a good story, but getting that granular with like a character isn't something that really seems like
the crafting stuff like that can get on my nerves. And it's like like the small like little increments and stuff like that where somebody's like, oh, eventually with like 6 small increments it'll be this, and I'm like, okay. But I would totally like it looks just amazing.
Some of the enemy types were kind of freaky. There was like, I forget what exactly they called them.
Huge muscle guys with like dreadlocks and everything like that.
Yeah, they use something called juice, which is like pretty obviously you'd call it that. That just gives them like, it's this crazy human growth hormones basically, where they just look like cartoonishly big, and gives them super speed. So they like when they're running at you, there's like a little shadowing or like an echo effect when they're running at you, and you're just trying to shoot them. Even they were a little bit of a challenge sometimes for the person playing the game, which is funny because the person that was doing the presentation wasn't playing and would give the person shit for messing up, which is nice. It shows you that they're actually playing the game, which last year they had by the time I saw the game last year was the last appointment of the day, and they purposely would like, hey guys, we're actually playing this, and would do something and ask someone in the crowd to like make the character do something because no one believed it was playable. And this year they had someone sitting in the audience playing it, so you can see him playing the game, which is good to see. I still can't believe that this would be running on a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One, but they didn't say what it was running on. It was probably PC because the game is just gorgeous. Like the level of detail is ridiculous. The lighting is amazing. I can't wait to see this on console, and I hope we get to the point where they release footage of the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, because they didn't make any sort of announcement. If they don't make an announcement about what the game's running on at E3, 99% of the time, if they do not tell you PS4 or Xbox One, it's on a PC.
Right.
Like just like a foregone conclusion. If they don't advertise what it's running on, it's on a PC. They may have forgotten to tell us what it was running on during this presentation, but they were pretty tight presentations that I doubt they would forget to tell you, and this is running on Xbox One or something. But I came out of this even more impressed and excited for the game. The combat looks good. Last year, if anyone remembers, I was worried about the shooting mechanics because it looked really awkward.
It looks tight on what I saw. So.
And that's what the problem was last year is, if I remember correctly, it was a little loose. And it's the first time they've done a shooter. You know, they've only done like Witcher hand-to-hand combat with like spells. This looks way tighter and has a level of depth that I think I can appreciate for a shooter. And they showed a variety of weapons that could make it interesting. And I'm curious now to see how the choices affect things, because it sounds like there's like at least 2 or 3 scenarios where they gave you choice, and whether that leads to a branching story or it's like one of those or if it's like a Telltale game where they give you choice, but in reality you don't have any effect on where the story goes. They haven't really gone into detail on if there's like a branching story or if you're just like doing little things on the side.
They tease some pretty cool stuff at the end there, though, like dark web stuff.
Yeah, you get jacked into the internet. Your consciousness gets jacked into the internet.
In like a bucket of ice, though, or something like that.
Yeah, you submerge yourself in ice, and then they hook you up to the system, and then you just end up in like the Matrix mode, which is funny with like Keanu Reeves in the game. But you just get put into like data, and that's where the trailer ends. But like I didn't have any idea that part of it, that type of thing was in the game.
Right.
I thought it was just going to be you're in the world. Yeah, but when it jumped into like, hey, you're data now. That's when I was just like, oh, shit, there's a whole other layer to this game. But it's fantastic. I can't wait for that.
And then 3 quick things that I saw back at 505 Games. I saw Relegend, which is like... It was really... These companies that are... Not companies, but these developers that are trying to mix like 5 or 6 genres into one are always really hard to explain what it is. Yeah,
and that's why sometimes I have no problem being like... Check out a trailer.
Yeah, so
here's my opinion on if it was fun or not.
It's kind of like a role-playing style game to it. Like you're trying to you feed a creature, and then you try to tame the creature, and then once you tame the creature, you have control of the creature, and they can help you attack and do things and farm. And there's a farming aspect to it of growing crops, which then there are more things you can feed the creature.
A lot of farming this year. I feel like a lot of smaller games are farming.
And then after you feed the creature, it evolves like a Pokemon. So, like, depending on your relationship with the creature and what you feed the creature is going to be a different evolution.
How cute are they?
They're cool looking. Like, they're definitely, like, the first time it's really kind of like this small, cute looking, like, I don't want to do this any injustice, but almost like this dolphin looking like thing that has feet.
Okay.
And then you feed it something like grapes or carrots, and you have a good relationship with it, and it evolves into more like a dynamic dragon looking thing.
Okay, what's the art style?
Cell shaded.
So, okay. That could be interesting.
3/4 view, cell shaded. there's a whole lot of like resource management and energy and your stamina and Monster Hunter elements into it and Pokemon elements and farming elements and art, and you can have as many creatures as you want. I think they said maybe up to like 300 creatures in your barn, as long as your barn is upgraded enough, and you can carry a certain amount of things as long as your backpack is upgraded enough. And towns and vendors, and like I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot. And again, it's not my thing, like, but they're like, even the guy that was like right at the appointment before me was leaving, he's like, oh, there's like a Monster Hunter Pokemon farming simulators. I'm like, that's 3 distinctly different things. So but I mean, like, visual wise it looked cool. The menu system seems to work really well. Again, it was another game that was on a PC build, and it didn't have any controllers. It does have controller support, but they didn't have any controllers there. So when that happens, I'm like, okay, can you play for me? Because this is not going to end well. It's because I don't mouse and keyboard well at all. Mm-hmm. So that looked cool. And then I went to Natsume, and I saw Real Fishing, which the fishing aspect of it looks very basic.
Yeah, it's always been kind of...
It has a super deep... based on how many fish you catch, based on the time of day, based on the upgrades to your rod and to your reel, and then the other members in your party are able to cook, and then based on cooking they get upgrades, and like it's just, and then you need more materials to then make more lures, and it's just like it's not a simulated fishing game, like it's an RPG with a fishing element. Mm-hmm. So again, it looked cool. That was everything I was playing at Natsume was running on a Switch. And then, so like that was fun. Like there just didn't really seem like there was, at least at the part that I was playing, that there didn't really seem like there was a ton of skill to the fishing aspect of it. Like as you upgrade your rod and your reel, and then you can move to different spots, and then at those different spots, like you might have some more challenging fish to reel in to then get better things.
I think I saw a Real Fishing game a couple years ago.
It's like their 10th version of the game or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's definitely at E3. They have the demo kind of on like easy mode, but most demos are just because you want to give a first good impression on someone.
Yeah, and then Harvest Moon Mad Dash. Again, this is a co-op Harvest Moon game where you were doing like, you would take smaller versions of tomato crops or carrot crops and pick them up and try to group them together. And as you group them together, they get a little bit bigger. After a certain amount of time, they are harvestable, and then you harvest them, and then you get the points for that. You're trying to get the crops as big as possible, as fast as possible. So there's a little bit of strategy to it, as it could be like almost like a Tetris style movement where you're trying to place the pieces incorrectly to get the crop as big as you can before you harvest it. But if you're not fast enough, then it's already harvestable, and there's time, and it's a score chase, and there's strategies as a co-op character. There's a certain point in time where like time freezes and everything is harvestable, so you just harvest like super fast. And I think every time we did it, we got like 2 stars, no matter how good I did or didn't do. I only got 2 stars. So, but those are like, if you like the Harvest Moon series, I don't really think you'd be disappointed in anything like that. So that seemed really cool. It looked really good on the Switch, like on a big TV and everything like that. So I would assume it would just look the same, if not better, on PS4. Mm-hmm. And did you already played Judgment, or?
No, my interview that I was supposed to have Tuesday got rescheduled to Thursday, but then when I got there, the person I was supposed to interview wasn't there. So I basically just kind of walked around. I think I got lunch at this point, just because they felt bad, but it was one of those things where it's like E3 happens. Yeah. People are busy, especially when they fly people out from Japan. Like, they're exhausted. They're doing interviews all day. They might have a flight to go home, so it was understandable. I never get like upset, especially going to E3 all these years. Yeah. I've seen people throw fits, and throwing fits is not cool. Right. Don't throw a fit. But yeah, so I ended up going to Ubisoft to see Roller Champions, and I played that and captured some footage. Played like 3 matches of that, I think, which took like 5 to 8 minutes a match. Okay. It's first to 5, but Roller Champions is a 3v3 multiplayer game, and it is like a combination of a little bit of vibe of Rocket League, just with like the arena look and vibe from it, and then just some of the speed. But it's on rollerblades. It is a roller derby-like game. The basic rule set is once your team has the ball, you need to make 1 full lap. And then after you make 1 full lap, if you throw the ball into the hoop, that's 1 point. but there's a risk reward if you make 3 laps and it's worth 3 points. But if you lose possession of the ball at any time, that lap gets reset. So it's a matter of just avoiding the other people or the other team, and then having your 2 teammates protecting you. You have the controls are simple enough, though there's like one feature that really wasn't working too well for me. But you have a tackle, which is just check basically, and it knocks you out for a couple seconds, and you have to decide if you're just going to wait where you are or go backwards, because there's no rules in terms of like going forwards or backwards. You have to move forward to get the lap, but there was a couple times where I got knocked down, or I saw that they were getting close to the goal to where I just went backwards, and I'm like, I'm just going to tackle the shit out of whoever has the ball.
Is it obvious which way is forward?
Yeah, along both sides at the bottom. So it's like a glass dome at the top, and where the dome meets the track, there is an arrow constantly like moving and pointing you in that direction. Though the game moves really fast, sometimes you can get a little thrown off. Okay. Which I hope they find a way to emphasize that arrow a little bit more, just because the game is fast. You have accelerate on the right trigger, and then the left trigger is a pump, which you can use to get better height, because you can just roll along the sides of the dome. The pump is a feature that didn't really work too well. I didn't really understand it. They explained it, but I just couldn't
time it or something.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was like I needed to build up a rhythm to do it, or if I just needed to press once, because acceleration, you'd just hit it every couple seconds, and then you would move faster.
Right.
And then when you are able to score the ball, you basically aim with the right stick, I believe, or you hold L1 and then you aim with the right stick, so you can do it while you're moving and you're just like trying to throw the ball through a hoop, which takes a lot of skill, because you don't want to just stop in place, because you're just leaving yourself open to get checked and tackled. I couldn't get a hang of the scoring. We did win the first 2 games and lost the last one because they brought someone in who came with a full selfie thing where he had like a neck brace thing that just like held his phone in front of him, and he had his wife, and they didn't know what they were doing, but they ended up on, like, one person ended up on my team, the other person ended up on the other team, and the developer was on the other team, so we just got our ass kicked for like the last game. But also the guy was screaming, like he was live streaming the entire time, which was fucking annoying. Like it's funny, the people on the other team were from another outlet, a well-known outlet, and they at one point told the guy who was like selfie streaming, like, hey, dude, do you have a mic? We can hear you. Stop screaming. And then the guy's like, oh, I didn't realize I was being loud. And still continued to, like, emote and overreact. Even though the people that were on his stream could not see what the fuck he was playing, because you weren't allowed to, like, capture off-screen footage. So it's just like, fuck, I hate streamers. But the game was fun. It's, like, super fast-paced. I couldn't get a hang of the scoring. Right. So I was just a goon. Like, the developer said, like, yeah, there's, like, goons or enforcers.
Are there different, like, styles of skaters?
No, but it's just kind of how you play it.
Right. And obviously speed is a factor. If you have enough speed going, the amount of the power of your check and everything like that, right?
Yeah. I got a little bit more details on, like, the structure of, like, what you're unlocking and stuff, like if you can customize your character. And
it's a Ubisoft game. I guarantee you can customize your character.
Yeah, they didn't really have an answer for me on that, which was a little like, you don't know. But I did a quick interview, but it was like one of those, like, I may or may not put it next week because it's like a short, like, 2.5 minute.
Well,
thing.
And then it sounds like that they're not 100% for sure if it's coming to console.
Yeah, and that's what kind of like towards the end of the interview.
I don't think that Ubisoft has ever really done anything not on console.
The only thing I can think of that would prevent this from going to console is if they have a Stadia deal for something.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I think.
Even then, like, the concern with latency with Stadia, like, especially in a game like that. Like, could you imagine trying to play, like, because you said it was, like, kind of like Rocket League on rollerblades, right?
Yeah, it's super fast-paced, and
Rocket League can be, like, as terms of an esport, can be, like, a precision game.
No, and this is very much precision, because, like, I played a goon or enforcer, like, for a majority of the thing, where I felt kind of bad because I was inadvertently just hitting the same person over and over again. It's just because they were just moving slow enough that I would get them. But when you decide to go backwards on the track and the person's coming up with the ball, you need precision to hit them because it's very easy to like just roll and dodge out of the way.
And I don't feel like this is a big enough name or a cool enough genre to do some kind of exclusivity to it.
That's what like when I was doing an interview and I was like, so we can expect this on PlayStation, PC, and they're like, PC is the only thing we can talk about. It's the only thing that this is going to be on or for the foreseeable future or something like that, how they phrased it. And it was just like, this has to come to console. It's just a matter of when.
Right.
But the game was cool. Apparently you're going to be unlocking arenas. So when you level up, you're unlocking arenas. Okay. Which I was really hoping it would be cosmetics, but I can't not see them letting you upgrade your cosmetics. That would be like crazy if they didn't. Because that's part of the fun of Rocket League is how like much you can, dress up your car. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. It did kind of scratch that like Rocket League itch. If I could figure out the scoring, that'd be great. But it was fun just being like the enforcer, just beating the shit out of people basically.
Yeah. And in terms of like longevity of a game like that, like Ubisoft has proven that they will just stay with something for a while if needed. Like they've made Rainbow Six an elite esport game when that was a broken hot mess at launch.
And that's one of the questions I asked, even though but they're in alpha, so they're still trying to figure it out. And just like I was basically like, this is an Ubisoft game, so can we expect the long tail? And they're like, well, we're in alpha right now, but Ubisoft's really good at supporting their game, even if it has like a rough start, they will see it through.
So you were playing that. I was playing Watch Dogs Legion. Did an interview for that as well. There's more details on that. So we have a pretty beefy episode next week for you guys, just in terms of interviews. That'll be out middle of next week. So like they're emphasizing it though. It's a truly play as anyone. But the Watchdog brand is still there of like hacking everyone and everything. It's set in London in the near future, in a near future version where tech has taken a dark turn and society is on the verge. London is a very iconic city. They've done, Ubisoft as a company has done pretty good jobs with cities and areas and stuff like that. Watch Dogs 1 in Chicago.
Okay, I was going to say, that was.
But San Francisco was predominantly better for Watch Dogs 2.
Because they're based in San Francisco. I don't think anyone visited Chicago. I think they just Googled Chicago and so it popped up.
And then some of the other games that they've done in terms of their open world aspect and everything like that too is there as well. London is definitely a much more compact city, than, and I even said I thought San Francisco was pretty compact, and they said, well, San Francisco is compacted, but London is even more compacted, at least what they're doing there. No central hero. You can literally play as anybody. So at the very beginning of when I was playing the game, they were having me, like target people, and they'd give you like a little brief description of like plus 60 melee damage or negative 20 health things, and like a little blurb line about them, and then you could just add them to your contacts. And then they did a little bit of cheats and stuff for us, and like there's definitely a recruitment process where they might have some problems, and you might have to do a couple missions to get them to have more favor towards DedSec. And then you recruit them and you do a mission for them. And they showed during the presentation, they showed at least 9 or 10 different characters in a cutscene talking to one character. So there's a whistleblower aspect to it, and then they showed 10 or 12 different characters talking to that character, fully voice acted, different personalities, saying similar lines, and then completely different lines. Accents, and things like that. I did during the interview. I did talk to them about like origin stories and things like that, and he kind of went around the thing. But if you listen to it pretty well, it sounds like some of the mission structures for the origin stories are going to be very similar, but they're not necessarily going to feel similar because they'll be in different locations. This is still a Watch Dogs game, and if you really broke down Watch Dogs at its core, is that you are trying to infiltrate a building, steal some files, and get out. That's kind of what it is at its core. There are some story elements to it, or some things that, based on you getting that data and how you use that data and how you get in and out, that can change how the game goes for you. There are different classes. So there's an enforcer class, which is obviously like a run and gun class. There's an infiltrator one, which is more melee based, and then there's the hacker, which is a hacker. You assign these classes after you recruit the player. And then that'll be like some based on their special abilities, like the little robot drone that you can throw out as a turret, or you can throw it. You can take control of it and walk up to somebody and stick it on their face.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that had like a sticky mine. Like as I knew, like I had drawn attention of somebody, I threw this sticky mine on the wall. A couple people came around the corner. When they came around the corner, the mine blew them up. So it's being able to hack drones in the world to oversee the area that you're looking at. Based on what I've played so far, like they're pulling off what they're saying. The game, it was at night. The mission I was playing was at night. It looks so cool. Like the police, like they have checkpoints set up. Like if you're driving and you run through this like blue wall or whatever, like it'll scan you and it'll be like, okay, the suspect's over here, and things like that. And you can still hide, kind of like GTA style, like your wanted bar. Driving felt just like Watch Dogs 2 did, except for like you drive in the other seat and on the other side of the road.
That messed with you?
It did. So like that's all there. The permadeath aspect is there as well, like they showed in the trailer, to where your character can be leveled up, and once your health bar depletes, you go down. You have the choice to give up. If you give up, you get arrested. When you're arrested, you get put in jail. I think over time, eventually, you could be released from jail, or if you have somebody on your team that's really good at getting somebody out of jail, then you can just break them out of the jail. Or if you choose to fight back, you get a little bit of your health back, and then you can continue the fight where you are. But if you die, your character's done. Like he's dead, it's over. He or she is dead, it's over. I did ask them about the recruitment level. If you're really attached to somebody at like level like 9 or 10, and you lose that person and everybody else is down at like a 2, like I feel like the game is going to give you objectives to make you continuously recruit players to maybe where you can't progress unless you have like a certain number of members on your team.
Which makes sense, because if you're like a level 20 character, I would assume the game would scale to that. Mm-hmm. So that if you drop to level 2 and they drop the scale back halfway through the game, that would probably be frustrating. If
you're like, I think that like when in the interview, I don't remember exactly what I said, but when you guys hear it next week, they talked about like the level cap is this, and then like when you recruit somebody at like a level 12, like the recruit you're going to get is like a level 7 or an 8 to kind of buffer it out. I also feel like there are going to be scenarios where it knows for sure that it almost is going to force you to make sure you have one of each class. Like I was more thinking about this last night, where it's going to make you have a hacker, or make you have an infiltrator or an enforcer based on how the mission is going to work. But the thing that I thought was the most interesting is like, so 50% or more of the weapons in the game are non-lethal weapons. Mm-hmm. One of the characters I had like an electric like taser gun. And the reason why they're giving you that option and things like that is because the choices matter, and how they like. Even when you're in a mission and you're scanning people, like you can scan people and add them to your contacts. So if you see a security guard that's like really good or something like that, like you eventually, he might be a recruit for you. But also if you kill that security guard, you may have somebody on your roster already that you had as a contact that you might be recruiting later, or that you may have recruited, that was that person's brother or best friend, and then that person's not going to be as happy with DedSec anymore. So like killing people, everything that you do like has reference and consequences and substance to it, to where like you really have to think about something, versus before in Watch Dogs you just walk up to somebody and kill them, like, oh, I got spotted, okay, let me just mow everybody down, grab the file and leave. Like now you could potentially be burning a relationship bridge with a character that you really needed because they were like super good at drone recognition or something like that, drone hacking, and now you don't have that person on your team anymore. I don't think it's going to be to the point where if you already have like somebody like recruited, like you already have somebody that you've been playing with like a level 6 or 7, and you like kill somebody accidentally and that person's like, F you, I'm not with you anymore. Like when you lose a character like that. Although I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
It has 5 separate storylines, so I'm not really sure what that means. Like one of the storylines is going to be really fleshing out what DedSec is doing and why they're doing it. And the voice, like I said, the voiceovers have persona, and then they also talked briefly about an online experience of a 4-player co-op online experience where you bring your characters from the campaign into your fully decked out, leveled up, skill based, comfortable how you built them characters from the campaign levels to your multiplayer.
What if they die?
Then I guess you don't have that roster anymore. If they die in multiplayer, I'm sure it doesn't punish you.
I know. That'd be great, though, if they were that punishing.
But based on what they've shown in a very small, closed environment, it sounds like the things that they talked about, like, they're pulling off. And they're not really, other than the origin story, they're not really trying to mask it too bad.
So the next game I saw was Lost Words Beyond the Page. It's being published by Modus Games. This is a really cool. I really enjoyed this. I didn't really know too much going into it other than like that description we usually get in these invite emails. But this is a
third-person adventure game with music.
This is a...
I'm not saying that's what the game was.
This game in particular, it's like a side-scrolling game with platforming and puzzles, but it takes place in the notebook of a little girl who's wants to be a writer. And when I say it takes place in a notebook, it's like half in a notebook and then half in a world. But you basically open up the notebook, and as the character is writing in her journal and writing out the story, you have a little drawing of a character, and you're platforming on the various words. And what the game does is it'll sometimes have you pick the next statement. So it's like, it'll say like, oh, my grandmother always said it's better to be, and then you'll see like words on it, smart, nice, and that, and then you add it, and then the voiceover will do that, and then it'll set up the sentence structure for you to like platform to the next page, which is a really cool visual. To just, like seeing the words float in there. It's a little kid, so there's a little justification on why the kid's like all over the page, because it's not just writing in paragraph form, it's just like writing sentences that's like all over the place. But the little girl is aspires to be a writer one day, and she begins to write out her fantasy book. So there's a thing that's like once upon a time, and then it's like no, scratch that out, and then you jump to the next platform. It's like in a place far, far away, and then it goes from there. And then they'll give you the options of like, and her name was, and then it'll give you a bunch of names, and you pick that, and then you jump into the actual fantasy world that the character that the main or the little girl is trying to make. So then you just jump into like a storybook fantasy world, and then it's just like zooms in, and then it's just a side-scrolling like puzzle game, and you still have your book with you, so your character has a book in that world with some words that you may have picked up along the way when you're like making choices and stuff like that in the platforming part, and those words can affect the world, and then you can solve puzzles with that. Some words will stick with you always, and other words will like disappear over time. So there was a part where there's a platform I couldn't get up to because it was too high, but I had learned the word rise. So then I took the word rise from the book, and then I used it to rise the platform I was on, and then so on and so forth till I finished the puzzle. So you'll find different words along the way, and it's cool because I guess what they could do is, because it's a little girl, she's like literally learning new words, and then you're using those words to it. And it's just really heartfelt. Like, I love the art style, especially when it's in the notebook and you're just like in the lines of the pages jumping from like sentence to sentence. Mm-hmm. It's really beautiful. It's definitely one of those games that'll probably make you cry. It's you can just already feel it. And then it looks like it's going to be like a focused like 3-hour narrative. Which is fine. I like those. I don't like if you're trying to tell an impactful emotional story, sometimes the shorter the better, just because you don't want to drag things out. But It was a really, really like beautiful looking game, and with some creative and neat ideas along the way. I really like that notebook aspect, and like just like picking up words and then using that for puzzle platforming. It's real simple. It's not going to be like Scribblenauts level of like any word you can find. Like, they give you various words. Like, there's only going to be like specific ways to do the puzzles, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's like one of those games that kind of surprised me, after a couple minutes of playing. You're like, okay, this is a really cool idea. But yeah, that's Lost Words Beyond the Page. I always want to say every time Lost Worlds, but I always have to like, no, Lost Words Beyond the Page.
I went over to Deep Silver and I saw multiple racing games. So I saw F1 2019, Again, a very heavy emphasis on esports from an F1 standpoint. And even the multiplayer aspect of like decorating your car and giving you your own unique look. I feel like with the multiplayer now, they've kind of gone away a little bit from the licensing aspect so that they can, like I know they worked with the F1 team to make an F1 car that is theirs, so therefore that they like technically like the way it's built is belongs to F1 racing. And then that way that they can change the colors and the logos and everything like that, and it's not like they're taking anybody else's frame and putting it on theirs. So that was a pretty big deal for them. And then it has like this is so hard to explain in a racing game, and I have like almost a hard time holding a straight face. And again, like racing games aren't really my thing, but like a campaign where your choices and talking at the press conferences, like similar to how like the NBA 2K and Madden have done, yeah. So that like where your persona and your sportsmanship and your cockiness and all that stuff matter, and you begin an F2 series and then you're trying to move up to the F1 series, and you'll be moving up to the F1 series with other people that are rivals and things like that, so that there's this relationship in the races.
Excuse my ignorance. F1's more classy than NASCAR, right?
Yeah, it's open wheel racing.
No, I'm saying it's classy though.
Yeah, it can
like
be. They still have their problems and stuff like that, but like because like those cars really can't touch.
Okay. No, I'm also thinking of just like personality as a driver. When I think NASCAR, I think of crazy rednecks. And
it's a little bit more classy.
Okay. I just want to know if I'm just like beer drinking,
Budweiser,
like just on my jacket all the time.
And then I saw Grid, and it's just being rebranded Grid Racing, and that's a little bit more of like a stock car style racing as well. And it's kind of like I was sitting next to the developer of the game, and he was talking. It was just him, and him and I were having a conversation, and there's a little bit of he wants the challenge and the difficulty of where you can turn all the assists off, and you can have a near sim racer, or he literally said this, you can have a near sim racer if you want to punish yourself and just whip your own ass. That aspect is there, or if you want to have fun like I do and play this game, like turn these on, and like his goal is like if you genuinely try like to where you're racing and you're trying to get better, like on certain levels, like you'll get fourth or fifth place as long as you like engage and try, and then if you get a little bit better, like you'll start to get some wins and things like that. But his biggest aspect was that he's like, I don't want to punish you, I don't want to cause problems and make this frustrating where you want to like snap your controller or break your wheel or anything like that. I want you to have fun playing the game. And there's a lot of collision technology that they have in there, and there's little rivals where you can like bump somebody, and again they have a little bit of that relationship aspect to them. Both games looked amazing. Like they look so cool. Obviously, you're like racing games at this point are just looking just great.
It's almost hard not to have a good-looking racer.
Right. They both had full wheel setups. One game I played with a controller, and the other game I played with wheels. One of them moved really far back.
Okay. Because I always wonder when I see them have those like actual seats with like an end at them. Just like, I wonder if Dave can.
Yeah. So they push the wheel back, and I sit down, and they have me bring the wheel forward, and then they adjust the pedals. And like one time, the guy put the pedals there, and he's like, "Oh no!" And then he saw me like stretch my leg out. He's like, "Holy cow!" And he's like, he pushed it a little farther back.
People in the video game industry, I feel like, are really short. I see people your height all the time, but when you're at the convention here, it's just like,
but no, I had it was fun. Racing games are really hard for me to ever like really get into. I just like the one I remember like years ago getting into was like Need for Speed, like Most Wanted or something like that. And I don't really consider that a racing game.
Arcadey racers, simulation ones.
I had fun with Burnout and stuff like that, but like Gran Turismo and things like that never really did anything for me. So, but I think I can see myself playing Grid periodically. I don't think I could see myself playing F1.
Yeah, one is a little bit more of an arcadey experience than the other.
But that is all that I saw. I did see like a brief, Iron Harvest, which is a 1920s plus game, which is like it's a real-time strategy game. Again, it was only on PC. It looks like they're working to bring it towards console by the end of the year, early next year. It's like the metal mech stuff in the 1920s and real-time strategy game. Even the guy presenting it was like, he's like pretty much like, you're an American, this doesn't really do anything for you. He was pretty funny about it too. He was German and he spoke just amazing English, and he was like, we actually had a really good conversation. But if you're into that, just look up Iron Harvest 1920 plus. That's coming soon. It's a real-time strategy game, like I said. And then just looking up 1920 plus stuff, like the artwork that he was showing me, it just looks amazing, like really cool, like where there's like the 1920s look with this huge like iron giant looking thing in the background. So.
The last game I saw was Trine 4. It was like literally my last appointment. I saw a presentation with two of the developers where they went through 3 levels just to show the different mechanics. I mean, this is the 4th game in the Trine series, so it's very much still that. They've just refined some of the mechanics and added new abilities. Really cool. The game looks gorgeous, especially on the setup they had. You know, like all the backgrounds really popped, and the character models look better than they've had before. I played it a little bit. The only thing is, it's okay, Dave. Our Audacity, if you heard Dave freak out for a second, or watched him on Twitch, our Audacity crashed, but we're still recording it on Twitch. Man, I don't know what's going on, man. Your MacBook is just like crashing. But I played it. It's fun. I enjoyed it. I played the first 2 Trine games. I didn't play Trine 3, so it's kind of hard to tell like the differences between Trine 3 and Trine 4 without playing Trine 3. It's funny though, while I was playing it, they literally were breaking the booth down. So it was one of those scenes where I usually, with sort of the type of game, and they tell you like, hey, you have 20, 30 minutes, I would explore every little option I could, but because they were breaking everything down, I'm just like, you know what, these guys want to go home. I'm going to rush through this and get to the end boss and beat the end boss. But the game looks cool. They seem like they've added a lot of like powers, abilities, and different puzzles and different ways to solve those puzzles. Game looks gorgeous. It was the last appointment of the day, so it was kind of hard to focus, especially as things were breaking down. And I was right next to the Bane booth. Like they're right next to the Bane booth, and holy shit, Bane was throwing out like beach balls and a backpack, and people were rioting to get that backpack. So it was like really hard to focus on Trine when I hear a riot happening in the next room. But yeah, Trine 4, it looks good. If you like the Trine games, it seems like it is going to be one of those, but even better. All right.
So we gave out awards this year. We decided to give out 3 awards each this year. So what was the 3 things that you saw?
I gave an award to Last Words. Wait. See, I messed up the name again. Lost Words. Beyond a Page. I really enjoyed the art style, and I'm a sucker for those like narratives that will make you cry. The game just looks gorgeous. It looks cool. It's doing some things that visually other games may have tried, but they found like a style and a game that works for that. Then I gave an award to Outer Worlds. I love Obsidian games, and I want to see them make games like this, and I was just happy to see what they can do beyond like Fallout New Vegas. Mm-hmm. I want to see them create another world, and it just looked good, and one thing that made me happy is the combat looked better than like it is in Fallout, and that's always been a thing that I can enjoy Fallout, and I love Fallout with a passion, but even I know the combat is garbage in Fallout. So seeing the combat without touching it, it looked better than Fallout, and that's kind of all I needed, was just to see like, okay, it doesn't look as bad, and it also has a bunch of humor, and it deals with like some darkness, but it also seems pretty light and like humorous, and I need games like that more. Right. And then the final game, Final Fantasy VII Remake. That I was doubtful about this. I think I was during when we were talking about the reveal a couple days ago. But the gameplay works really well. I enjoyed the combination of the hack and slash mechanics, because I need that now. It's really hard for me to get into a game like Final Fantasy VII original combat system. I don't know, as I got older, I just don't like turn style combat.
I think that's a huge concern though, of like where they needed to combine a little bit of combat, because I think some people, myself included, might look at like, oh, Final Fantasy, like I don't want to play that type of combat.
Yes, and but then I was also worried in the same of, will it be good? Mm-hmm. And I had fun with the combat. It's simple, but it's Kingdom Hearts simple. Yeah. And I like Kingdom Hearts. And then the tactile stuff is still there with that slowdown mechanic, and that was fun. And then jumping between the two characters, having them target certain limbs when it slowed down was interesting. And I got to play a good 20 minutes of it, and I didn't get bored in that 20 minutes. It was challenging and it was fun. So I thought it deserved it. And it had a great showing in terms of like the trailers they showed at the Square event. So I was more than happy to award Final Fantasy a remake getting the best of show.
You should.
But it's a full remake.
It's not a full remake. It's only the first third of the game.
It's a first third of the game remake. I should have cut the
award in a third.
Be like, you get the other piece next year and the year following. But those are the 3 games that impressed me more, and there was like a couple more that I was going back and forth with whether I should give an award.
Yeah, I mean, like, just before I give my 3, like, I mean, I think we all kind of generally, I know Michael and I do, like, generally agree with it. There was nothing that was, like, absolutely, like, amazing shown this week.
Yeah, like last year, the absolutely amazing thing that was shown for me was Cyberpunk.
Right.
But there was no Cyberpunk this year. Like, there was Cyberpunk this year, but there was no, like, jaw-dropping, like, holy shit, this is the next evolution in gaming sort of thing.
So I felt like this E3, like, the theme for me of this E3 was, this is the stuff you saw last year that looks even better now. Or
it's coming out next year.
Yeah. Or we're trying to get out before next gen happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what... You know, like, that's what I feel like the theme of, like, whatever. And we don't know enough about next gen to even talk about anything.
Which makes next year's E3 even more exciting, because we'll have probably full reveals of both consoles next year and launch games to talk about. But this year was definitely like, we need to get stuff out by March.
Yeah, and I think the skepticism around, like, people are like, oh, like, comparing the end of PS2 cycles going into PS3 and the end of PS3 going into PS4, we were still getting some really good games. Like, I noticed, like, on my memories this week, like, Last of Us came out on PS3 this week. Mm-hmm. In, like, I think 2012?
Something like that.
Yeah, so, like, when that was, like, right on the cusp of PS4 coming out. We don't really have... I mean, Cyberpunk is close to that, but with this generation, you know, where, like, I think everything's that's on PS4 and Xbox One working on next Xbox and PS5, like, I think that launch title scenario is still going to be there. But I just feel like the lead launch titles are just going to be better.
Should be, yeah.
I think they know that they're not going to be... Not that they were terrible games, but they're not going to be the Killzone Shadowfalls and the infamous things.
Yeah, which were good games, but they just weren't like, I need to buy a console for this game. We might get a couple of those, hopefully.
So, for me, I gave an award before you even said this to me, and it kind of almost helped validate it to me, but Darksiders Genesis. Mm-hmm. Like you said, right when I walked out of the appointment, that's the first thing that I ran into you about, where you're like, oh my god, I want to tell you about what I just did. Mm-hmm. You know, like where you said... Yeah,
that was the first... I said to you, this is the first time I've seen you excited out of an appointment.
Yeah, so like it was really cool. I love the Darksiders universe, and I've only been invested in it like 2 years, because I played like 1 and 2 like a couple years ago, and I played 3 when it came out. And I still need to finish 3, and then obviously this Genesis looks just super promising, and hopefully that, you know, like they hit the 2019 time frame that they want.
I think it also helped that you were going into it with some reluctancy and like you were a little worried about it, and then it actually being good.
Right.
Just
for sure.
It doubled up.
It definitely surprised me. Like I was like, wow, and then I'm like, okay, so then at the beginning they're like, we're going to do it like this, and I'm like, oh, interesting. And then I got to watch somebody play it, and it was exactly what they said it was before they started playing it, which is always good. Watch Dogs Legion gets another one too. Like, I love Watch Dogs. I know that everybody's going to give me crap about more Ubisoft stuff, but they're one of the best publishers on the market right now.
Until I saw Lost Words, I almost gave it to Roller Champions. But that was the only thing that stopped Ubisoft from getting another one.
Right. I mean, I was a little slightly disappointed with Breakpoint, but
that's just because you sucked.
Watch Dogs is super promising. Like, it just I can't wait to delve deep more into that and see how Legions ties back into 2 and 1 and things like that. So like in terms of like the world that they're building there and the DedSec thing that they're building. And then another one that just kind of surprised me as well is Contra Rogue Ops. The fact that I can remember playing the Contra stuff as a kid, and then now that you're essentially mixing a cool genre that I had as a kid with a twin stick style shooter, and it works and it was fun, and not even getting a chance to really delve deep into the other classes or the skill trees and stuff like that. Like, there just looks to be like a lot of promise. And again, I guess I'm just a sucker for online co-op, playing with my friends and having fun and just blowing shit up.
But especially Contra got plenty of that.
So
yeah, it was a good E3 this year. It was different, obviously because we have smaller staff, but just how the show was set up. But like everyone that's online had seen like pictures of the show floor and freaking out about like, what's the point of E3 anymore? Those questions are valid, but from our perspective, I only had 2 appointments on the floor.
Yeah, I think I had 3.
Yeah, and yours were probably all hardware for the most part, except for Big Ben.
Yeah, and even like Big Ben, their booth was like closed off, so like they pretty much were not on the floor.
Yeah,
they had some advertisements around. They were showing some TVs on the outside of their stuff, but their booth wasn't accessible to the public.
Yeah,
so
it had like
they
2 lines of security. I even couldn't get through to say hi to Dave.
Yeah, they could have been upstairs in a meeting room, and nobody would have known anything different.
So there were games, and there were games that me and Dave couldn't see because there was only 2 of us this year. So the
only thing on the list that I think I really wish that you or I would have gotten some time on is that Control was playable, and we didn't get to see it.
Yeah,
but I don't think that there was anything else that.
There was a little stuff here and there that I'd say, this was at the show, but it wasn't anything like killer. But I think this E3 you mentioned before is just we're in between gens, so this E3 would have some of the lacking stuff because a lot of the big studios are just working on something. You know, like Sony's not here because they don't really have anything because they have their heads down for PS5, and other publishers are in the same boat. You know, and it's one of those things where it's like Activision only had like two games or 3 games here, and they were upstairs, and one of them was a mobile game. But there was stuff to see at E3. It just wasn't on a show floor. So the pictures of an empty show floor were real, but from a coverage perspective, there was still a ton to see because there was just stuff in a meeting room. E3 definitely needs to figure out something to make it more worthwhile if it's going to be open to the public forever. But at least from like a coverage perspective, like there was stuff to see. There was plenty of stuff to see. I wish I could have hung out at Devolver a little bit longer because they had more games, but the schedule was packed. You know.
Yeah, so it looks like they put the banner up for dates for next year, and it looks like it's going to stay in Los Angeles at least next year.
I would assume if they put the banners in the convention center, that means that they'll be here for next year.
So I would, if you had to ask me right now, I fully expect Sony to be back next year.
I do too. I feel like we'll get a reveal before that, and then it will be the full blown like here's our launch games.
Yeah. And if they come on, if they say they're coming onto the show floor, I would expect Microsoft to at least have some kind of presence on the show floor, along with having the Microsoft Theater. And then I still expect EA to do what they've been doing if it's staying in Los Angeles.
Yeah. But that might bring Activision back to the floor, or at least Activision games might be at the Sony booth next year because they usually have 1 or 2.
So I think it's just a transition. But yeah, I based on what Microsoft said with Xbox Scarlet coming in holiday 2020, like I fully expect there to be a substantial presence of stuff of like in June next year of like this is what you get to play in November, and they really have to. So I think that it's just a transition year. And if it's not, then if the coverage of games and stuff like that is completely changing, then we may or may not be here next year. So we'll have to see. But again, like I said at the beginning, I do appreciate everyone buying T-shirts, subbing on Twitch.
Yes, thank you.
Tweeting at us, Facebook questions and things like that. I know we've had some audio issues with the previous day's episode, and we'll have some of that stuff fixed by the time I get home. And I know Michael and I have a ton of writing to do. In years past, we've been able to put 1 or 2 things out, but we really didn't have a lot of time for that this year.
No, we were running. There was no gaps in our schedule to calm down.
Thank you to the home team as well. Again, as usual, you guys did a great job of posting some of the news, press conference recaps. So if you guys haven't gone to psnation.com, just please go there, check out whatever's posted there. There's tons of recaps from each press conference, trailers, some other stuff that we probably didn't cover, things like that. So just go ahead and continue to, if you give us a follow on Twitch, if you're listening to the audio version of this, follow us on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, all the stuff that we talk about weekly, and please just give us feedback on how you think that the coverage went. Do you like some of this Twitch in real life stuff? Like this has kind of taught me a couple things that I can figure out to maybe possibly live broadcast the podcast recordings if we don't have an embargo or anything like that as well.
Yeah, it's possible.
So just a couple things that we're still working on, but I appreciate it, and I hope everyone that's here. If you're listening and you're in Los Angeles and you were here for E3, like, have safe travels, and nothing ridiculous happens. And if you're at home, again, thank you for participating and being an interactive community. We love and appreciate that. So.
Yep, and then look forward to our interview cast next week, and then a normal episode the week after that.
Yeah, because we don't really have anything to talk about that we played that you guys haven't already heard.
Yeah. So it'd just be like, our next week's episode would just be us like, I spent 12 hours at airports today.
So, all right, guys, everyone, we will talk to you in probably about 10 days, and then we'll have the interview podcast up later next week. So, everyone, have a great week.
Yep. See ya. It did that yesterday where it, like, took 2 clicks. It's got, like, a really good sound.